Chris, we're in Spain. We're going to do a little bit of bike riding and shine a light on some of the most commonly asked questions about bike maintenance. So I thought, start with first things first. Why not? I've not got my bike out of the garage for absolutely ages. So what's the first thing I need to check before we get going?
For anyone that hasn't ridden their bike for a little while, we're just going to go through a really basic M check, and it's a way of checking that everything on the bike is at least safe. Maybe not working well, but at least safe. So starting at the front of the bike, we're going to start down at the quick release, checking that that's either bolted or done up all the way through. Yeah. Then you're going to run your hand around the spokes, looking for a nice even ping, a nice spoke tension throughout the wheel. Then coming up onto the wheel, leaning on that tire and just checking your air pressure. And we can also use a tire pressure gauge to do that, just so you know you're in that sweet spot.
And what's that sweet spot? So just describe to me, what should that feel like?
It's different for everyone. So your tire pressure is going to be totally different than my tire pressure. If you're riding in the wet, it's going to be maybe softer than if you're riding in the dry, depending on how much you've got in your rucksack could change those things. So what we're looking for in an M check is just how much the tire compresses under the rider's weight when they push on top of the wheel.
Cool.
Yeah. Then you're going to grab the wheel, rock it from side to side, and just check that everything's nice and tight and that your bearings are all good. Coming up to the top of the bike, we're going to squeeze on the front brake and pinch just between the head tube and the headset. We're going to rock the bike backwards and forwards, and we're just checking that that headset's nice and tight and there's no knocking in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Squeezing both brakes, rock the bike backwards and forwards. Pretty important that your brakes are working. Yeah, and then while we're up on that cockpit, just checking that everything's nice and tight, that you've got bar end plugs in there. It's a really common mistake to see people with no bar end plugs, and it can have a horrible apple coring effect. Clamp your wheel between your legs, give your bars a little twist, making sure that your stem's nice and tight, especially if you've been traveling with your bike and you've loosened off your stem and then put it back on. Then we're going down to the bottom of the M, and this is in your bottom bracket area. So you're checking that your cranks are nice and tight, that there's no knocking in the bottom bracket, that your pedals are threaded all the way in, and that everything in there is as it should be. Coming up, we're then looking at the seat clamp, making sure that that's clamped correctly, or if you've got a quick release, that's done up. Then up to the saddle, little wiggle with a dropper post. There'll be a little bit of play, but we're just making sure that saddle's not gonna come flapping off when you're climbing.
No one wants a flappy saddle.
Nobody likes a flappy saddle. Going to the back of the bike, so now we're at the final bottom of the M. We're doing everything to the rear wheel that we did to the front wheel. So checking the quick release, round the spokes for even tension, checking that the wheel's in nice and tight, and then looking at what our tire pressure is like.
Okay, so pretty much the same on the back as the front.
Yeah, exactly. And while you're going over the bike, you can look for the sort of more cosmetic stuff. You're just checking the frame out, you're checking that everything there's no cracks or anything that you weren't expecting, that your tire tread is in good condition as well. There's no big lugs hanging off or anything like that. But you've given that bike a once over. This is just checking that it's safe to ride. So things might not be working perfectly, but at least it's going to be safe to ride.
I mean, is there anything that can go wrong to your bike when it's just sitting there, hibernating?
Well, yeah, things happen in the dark, the gremlins come out. You want to make sure that if you haven't had your hands on that bike, even if maybe something happened on your last ride and you just didn't notice it and you've put it away and maybe it comes back to bite you on this ride. So be sure and ride with confidence. Bikes, there's a lot of similarities between them these days, but there's a lot of big fundamental differences as well. You're on a Scott, I'm on a Yeti. On your bike, it's predominantly Torx keys or Torx bolts. On mine, it's Allen. So they look different. The Torx key is a little bit more of a star type shape. So that's one of how you know. But a generic multi-tool will often have a couple of different tools on it. So you'll have a Torx, you'll have an Allen. Sometimes it's better to have less tools, but just the ones you need for your bike. So do a little bit of research there. I can't give you a right or wrong answer, but know your bike. The other thing that I would never leave without is just a decent pump.
My bike's checked via the M check, thank you very much for that. And I've packed my bag with all the vital essentials. So I really want to show you some of these local trails.
I'm looking forward to it.